Okay, everyone, we're gonna come up with the next big children's cartoon. All right, start pitching your ideas. I'll take anything you got. Hamsters? No, no, it's been done. Sharks? Done. Cows? Done. We need to start thinking outside the box. What's an animal we haven't done? What if we did things that weren't animals? What? You mean like Transformers? Yeah, I guess. Well, we can't do the robot thing. Okay, hear me out. Sentient lawn chairs. Okay, I'm listening. I'm listening. What do these sentient lawn chairs do? They're super spies that get around by hiding in places as chairs. All right, I'm digging it. Okay, we're missing one element so far. Okay, they're spies, the lawn chairs. We're good. Kids are gonna love that. Okay, but there's one thing we're missing. What's that? They need a favorite food, something kids relate to. Uh, uh, French fries? No, too one-dimensional. Needs a protein. Uh, we got uh. Hold it, Chelsea. What have you got? They could like sushi. Kids hate sushi. Devin, throw it out there. Any food at all. Lobster. Devin, you're fired. Get the hell out of here. Son of a bitch. All right, come on. What do we got? Jelly beans. Kids love jelly beans. They could be into all kinds of weird flavors of jelly beans. I love it. We can get a tie-in merchandising deal with Jelly Bellies. All right, everyone. I think we've done a great job here today. Kids are gonna love spy chairs. Welcome to the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Ruben Uncut. Today, I'm here with good friend Joseph Lewis. How are you doing today, Joe?
Doing good. The rain has calmed down downtown, so that's good. No high winds.
Yeah, we are experiencing some crazy high winds, so some of the audio quality might be interrupted by the crazy weather since we are recording this virtually. But hopefully not too bad. All right, today's topic is, of course, cartoons. This is a favorite thing of both mine and Joe's. We love the cartoons. Ain't that right, Joe?
Yeah, I love them because, like in many of our generation, um, you are encouraged to hold on to the things you grew up with and never, ever, ever let them go.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in all honesty though, I don't know if that's not normal. Like,
No,
I mean, like when you listen to like the older generations complaining, it's almost always about how like they wish it was like when they were kids.
yeah.
That's
I
all.
mean, nostalgia has always existed in different ways.
Yeah.
It's the intersection of capitalism that's to blame.
I mean, I feel like nostalgia has probably always been there, but capitalism certainly exploits the need for nostalgia. But like, who am I to judge? I almost all the video games I'm playing these days are like something old or like something new designed to mimic something old.
I
That's
mean,
like,
like what the biggest release of the year right now is the Resident Evil 4 remake.
yeah, that's pretty wild. I don't have a system that'll play it right now. But yeah, no, I'm not surprised by that. And I mean, like, it's not even the first time that's happened. Uh
Oh, Capcom's been churning out those remakes for Resident Evil games for a bit.
yeah, no, after they realized this, after they did the first RE remake, someone there must have been like, wait a minute, guys, this is genius. We just take all our old games and update them to modern gameplay technology.
And that wasn't even the first time they remade Resident Evil.
Fair.
There was the GameCube version,
Oh,
which
that's the one I'm talking about.
I was thinking like when they remade oh no, they remade Resident Evil 2
Yeah.
recently.
So that it would be more like four, at least in terms of controls. Uh,
Yeah.
but so that's so now they finally gotten to updating Resident Evil 4. They skipped over 3 and Code Veronica, and we're like, we're just going right to this one.
Oh, they did 3, but they
Oh,
didn't do Code Veronica.
they remade 3. I missed that one somehow.
Yeah, they did do 3. They didn't do Code Veronica, which seems like a weird miss. But it's
Yeah.
also a weird game.
I mean, I understand that it's not numbered, but like it ties directly into the main series storyline.
It also has some of the more nuttier characters in the whole series. So
I feel like the only reason it wasn't numbered is because it was specifically made to be an original game for a new piece of hardware, the Dreamcast.
yeah, which then promptly bombed like no one's business.
I mean, the Dreamcast is a sad tale of a between generation console system. It was too
That's
late to compete with the systems it was better than, and uh, not new enough to compete with the systems that came out after it.
Yeah, I've talked to many people that are like, "Oh, it should have survived into the GameCube era." I was like, I don't think it would have been powerful enough to compete. Like it, PS2 outclassed it just barely,
Mm-hmm.
and like the Xbox and the GameCube would have just buried it at that point because those were just objectively more powerful.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. Although, like, the one thing that might have kept it going would be the fact that it was deliberately designed to be very compatible with porting specifically, weirdly, PC and arcade games.
Oh
Where
yeah, I mean the Dreamcast was basically just a Naomi board.
yeah, like almost everything, like a large percentage of the games in the Dreamcast were either arcade games or Windows games.
And they were pretty much arcade perfect too in their emulation.
Yeah, they were really good arcade games. That is fair. Oh wow,
Like the
we got sidetracked by video games.
it's gonna happen.
Yeah, no, it's true. Because we also love video games.
Yeah.
That's why.
Pin that for another general chat.
Yeah. Um, but speaking of remakes of cartoons, I don't know. I released a podcast episode recently about how I ended up watching a little bit of the Care Bears like reboot.
Ooh, I've been meaning to watch it. I have a friend who does some music for it.
Oh, really? That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
It is interesting. Because like the overall like concept of like what it's doing story wise like feels more 1980s than even the original stuff felt.
Isn't it like very like no plot, just like a bunch of just adventures? Like
Kind of. I don't know, like that's not technically accurate of the new one. Although to be fair, I haven't finished it, so I don't know how like it has an overarching story.
hmm, okay.
Which, which is that the Care Bears find their way into the silver lining, and once they're in the silver lining and they discover its weird little inhabitants, they also discover that their former enemies from Blusterland, who they once signed a treaty with, are breaking the treaty to come into the silver lining and ruin it for the inhabitants of the silver lining.
Jeez.
And what follows is like literally like a Cold War scenario. Like literally the the Bluster people will have some type of like weird plan to harass the people who live in the weird creatures that live in Blusterland in some way. And like some episodes, like you're like, how is this not about the Cold War? Because there's literally an episode where like these two like tiny creature kingdoms, like one's flowers, I forget what the other one is, but they're like trying to have like a get together thing, and like the tiny creatures keep bringing them these gifts, and they're what's happened is the Blusters have put 2 literal puppet flowers inside the flower kingdom to that every time the like ambassadors with their gifts show up, convinces the king or queen flower that they're making funny faces at them when they're not looking. And so like it goes badly every time, and the Care Bears are trying to negotiate the situation, but eventually they find out about the puppet, like the fake flower people who are like spreading the misinformation.
What streaming service is this on?
Right now it's on HBO Max, although it was
Oh,
apparently it was originally created for the Boomerang channel.
because at first I thought like the way you're describing it is like it sounds like this is the case of a show that could might have had a little bit more freedom because it was flying under the radar in its production.
I mean
Like
it
not a
was
lot of people was caring about it.
it was technically made for premium cable.
Mm,
Like Boomerang is Cartoon Network's like premium channel.
yeah,
Uh
weird.
it has no commercials.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Boomerang doesn't have commercial. Well, it has between shows they have essentially ads for other shows on Boomerang.
But there's no ad breaks in the
There's
middle
no
of the
ad breaks.
shows.
Yeah, no, you have to pay extra to get Boomerang in your cable package. Uh,
Gotcha.
yeah, no, Boomerang's pretty cool. It's where all the Hanna-Barbera cartoons go to retire.
Yeah.
Uh, they all they also have like Samurai Jack on late at night, or at least they did
Like,
when I was staying in a place that had Boomerang.
see,
But
that's what's up. Then all they need now is Megas XLR, but that's never, ever, 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 ever gonna happen. Need to add more evers to that.
so wait, what show is this? Or
There was a Cartoon Network action show called Megas XLR. I loop it in with Samurai Jack because
wait,
they
is
both
that the
came out
one where
around the
there's
same time.
like is that the one where there's like a is he a kid who has who's a robot pilot?
Um, describing a lot of things because that could be Symbiotic Titan.
You're right. Oh wait,
Uh,
no, you're right. That's the one I'm thinking of right there. I remember the title of that. That's the one that I've seen clips from. Some portion of the internet was very upset that there's an episode where like a girl is twerking. Uh,
I remember that. I
I
remember
don't
when that happened. I
I
just remember laughing. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, just within the context of the show, what was happening was funny.
what so actually I do want to ask because like what who was the intended audience of that show? Was it an Adult Swim or Cartoon Network show?
It was for Symbiotic Titan
Yeah.
and the same audience as Samurai Jack and Megas XLR. So
Okay.
the older Toonami kids.
Okay. So like this is okay, yeah. So that makes sense. So this is aimed at like yeah,
This was during the big action cartoon boom, and Symbiotic Titan was coming out during the end of that era, and the transition for Cartoon Network into like was this those might have been shortly before they started make live action shows, and then that eventually led into the Adventure Time, Steven Universe, current Renaissance,
mhm.
which is now over and is replaced by Teen Titans Go all the time.
Yeah, no, the tragedy of Teen Titans Go is fascinating in a weird way.
It's a good show.
It is good for what it is, but I understand why a lot of people hate and reject it. It it's because it
For me,
brings
it's like
back
they're babies. It's like, yo, go back and watch the original. This is not the same show.
yeah, no, exactly. Because it like it used like it like essentially used the same actors and characters and sort of like they
Same
like yeah,
visual cues. So it kind of tricks older audiences and goes like, oh, this is gonna be like the original Teen Titans. It's like, no,
but it
this is
is
just
not.
comedy.
What
It's just comedy.
what I find really funny is that like when the original Teen Titans cartoon came out, like it was a little too silly for me. I was like 17 or 18 and I was like, no, I'm used to the more serious tone of Batman the animated series. This is too silly for me. And and then Teen Titans Go came out and I was like, oh, there was a sillier level that for them to go to.
It's the level of deep cuts that they cram into that show. Like, I'm always astounded by the background elements they put in there. There's shout outs to like old DC stuff or some of the jokes that they do. And some of the jokes they get away with in Teen Titans Go give me like Animaniacs vibes.
uh so
Even with the music.
the thing that made me like Teen Titans Go is actually the movies.
Mm,
I saw the movie Teen Titans Go to the Movies, And like honestly, on a certain level, I found it more subversive than like the Deadpool movie. Because like on a certain level, even though like Deadpool is subversive, like there's sort of an expectation of him being subversive. So like the movies are actually kind of tame in terms of how subversive he could be. But like Teen Titans Go is a PG for the family movie. So when it's like in your face subversive, it's it's wild.
Yeah, like the Titans going back in time, rewriting superheroes history gag.
Yeah, including murdering Aquaman. Like they they kill him with like the with littering. They kill him with
Oh
the
yeah, he gets the rings around
yeah,
his neck.
from the pop like what do you call those the plastic things to hold your pop cans together.
And they just have a kryptonite party and just kill Superman. I'm like, what?
Well, they
Like
went back.
it's
They saved Krypton. Is I remember how they got rid of Superman. So,
yeah.
so he was never sent to Earth. They they
Save Bruce Wayne's parents, I think.
yeah. Which is hilarious because after they realize they messed up with the time travel and they go back and do it, they're basically murdering Bruce Wayne's parents.
Yeah, they send him down Crime Alley. I'm like, no.
Yeah, and then like of course, like not to spoil anything, but like the ending is a straight up fucking with the audience thing. Like specifically parents who might have brought their kids to it, because like the last line of the movie is Robin like attempting to have the last line of the movie where he says, "Kids, ask your parents where babies come from," and then like I'm just like it was just like so much of it, and like they kill the Atom. The Atom gets smushed on their windshield, and they wipe him away with the windshield wipers. And then it's got two Stan Lee cameos.
For no good reason. Oh,
Where
yeah,
like
no, it's a
the first cameo, he's like, "Oh, I'm in the wrong movie," and then the second cameo, he doesn't care. He's like, "I love being in movies," and it's really Stan Lee's voice. It's great. Yeah, Teen Titans
yeah.
Go the movie is great, and like the musical numbers, like
I also really love the Night Begins to Shine specials.
I've
If
seen
you've
a
never,
couple of those.
yeah,
They they are interesting.
they're such a great callback to 80s cartoons and 80s music. Like that music is on point. There was no reason those songs had to go so hard.
Well,
Like that sits in my free rotation on music.
honestly, their musical bits might be one of the show's strengths. Like because like Teen Titans Go the movies, it's a musical. Like they have enough musical numbers in it to define it as a musical.
That's
Uh,
why I compare it favorably to Animaniacs, because that was always within the DNA of that show was the music.
nice.
So like you sit down and watch Teen Titans Go, and at first when I first started watching the show, I was like, a lot of people are complaining about it. I start listening to the music, and it's like this music is pretty funny and good, and the gags are good. I just wanted something different, and once I got over that, started enjoying the show more.
Yeah. The my one of my favorite bits from the movie is the upbeat song. Upbeat, upbeat. And I forget the rest of the words, but like that like tiger mascot guy comes out with the guitar and they're playing it. But it ends with them hitting the the tiger mascot guy with their car, and the Titans all get out of the car, and Cyborg yells out, "His dad's a cop!" and they run. like like damn, I didn't expect them to kill that guy.
The movie is just like jam packed with it, but it's just an excuse to do a bunch of jokes. It's like it's also why I was excited for. I don't know if it's ever gonna come out, but the Amazing World of Gumball movie,
Yeah, that was a good show too.
which
Uh,
I hold like I think that's funnier than Teen Titans Go, the amount of meta shit. If you want to talk about meta, that show routinely does it.
Hmm.
Like there's a whole episode where the family runs out of money, and that means that like the budget of the show is slashed. So as they're running out of money, like the animation gets crappier to the point where it's just animatics instead of like fully animated stuff,
Nice.
which
Yeah.
isn't a new gag. Like that was also done in was it Chowder did that gag, and it ended in the voice, like instead of seeing the animatics, it just cuts to the voice cast in the sound booth.
I mean, there's kind of a Looney Tunes episode where it's kind of like that. Except it's
Those
not,
are
they're
always
not
fun.
running out of they're not running out of money. It's just Daffy Duck gets into an argument with the animator. So the animator just starts messing with him.
Oh yeah,
It's like
the
a
Duck
classic,
Amuck.
it's like a classic Looney Tunes bit. Uh
One of my favorite Looney Tunes of all time is Duck Amuck.
I think Daffy Duck was always my favorite character of the Looney Tunes. And I don't know what that says about child me's psychology. I don't want to spoil the Care Bears episode, but my takeaway was essentially that I don't know if I've ever related to any character as hard as I suddenly found myself relating to Grumpy Bear in that series. But like, yeah, no, other favorite characters include people like Donald Duck and Daffy Duck. Like, I don't know what was up with me as a kid, but like,
I mean,
but
I
always,
was I those were my favorite characters. Daggett from Angry Beavers was always one of my favorite.
like child me like related so hard to these like characters who were basically based around like
Anger and being done with it.
yeah, like frustration and like yeah, and like that kind of reflects in my comedy to this day though is that like the character people always tell me that I play the best is like the frustrated straight man, the guy who's
Yeah,
like it's funny because my character is so frustrated with any situation that is happening and
I'd, I'd agree with that. You play that extremely well.
well
Where
it's
it's like
also
the world is crazy. You're like, wait a second, that's not how these things work.
and like the thing about it, the reason I think it works well for improv is because it allows you to provide a like alternate point of view in a scene while at the same time not negating it, because it's like this character has to accept everything that's happening. He's just not happy about it.
Yeah. I mean, strong emotion is the key. Is like it'd be different if you were playing the apathetic one that would fall as often as it would land.
like like you'd almost have to make that type of character sad. Like you'd have to like if you're gonna be like borderline apathetic, then then you almost have to be like more depressed,
Yeah,
because then the joke is more of an oh. And
yeah. Apathy definitely needs like a secondary emotion bolstering it because apathy by itself doesn't really motivate anything in a
oh yeah,
scene.
no, apathy is death, because like at a certain point, the only joke you can really make is how apathetic they are.
Yeah, which can work, but it's a gamble.
Yeah, it's a very high risk card, as I always as I refer to it.
It's not
Uh,
the strongest move, I'd say.
yeah, no, like you have to be like everything just has to line up just right for that to work. And even then, like it's gonna be almost the same joke every time. Like you just have to hope that the other actors in the scene with you are going to like understand and like just keep heightening it so you have more ridiculous stuff to be apathetic to.
Yeah,
Which is putting a lot of work on other people for you to essentially take uh to do little.
yeah,
Because apathy makes it hard to contribute to a scene.
yeah, it does. What?
So so yes, if any improvisers are listening, one quick tip to make yourself better at improv right away: don't choose apathy.
Yeah, run the hell away from apathy. Choose
Yeah,
another strong emotional connection.
and like that aloof above everything choice also extremely difficult for similar
Yeah,
reasons. Like you get like if you're gonna pull that card, you better be witty as hell.
Yeah.
Because if you can't make it witty as hell, then like you're just a drag on everything.
I wanted to take a second and go back to
Oh yeah, we were talking about cartoons. Yeah, which one do you want to go back to?
um well, I had two questions. I had two things.
Sure.
The first one is I wanted to go back to Megas XLR because I mentioned that.
Fuck,
Was it?
something just. I think the wind is literally slamming my garbage and recycling cans against my house.
Oh no. The wind wants to come in.
It, yeah, no, like so. It just sounded like it sounds like things are like heavy things are slamming into the side of my house. It's
Oof.
wild. If they had not been if my trash cans had not been by my house, they would definitely be in the street right now.
Oof.
All right, I'm sorry. What were your questions?
Uh, I wanted to bring up Megas XLR again.
Oh yes, yes. I never got to the bottom of what that was. So yeah.
It's an action cartoon in the same time period as like Symbiotic Titan. It came out before Symbiotic Titan. Uh, it was an action cartoon starring like this average fat dude named Coop and his friend Jamie, who are like kind of slackers that work in a junkyard, and they end up finding a giant robot that got warped from the future, and like space renegade that's trying to also obtain it. Basically, they're fighting evil aliens and stuff. That's just all the whole setup of it. It's just an excuse to do a bunch of different comedy adventures with giant robots and play with like anime and sci-fi tropes. And it's a glorious little show. It's really funny. The voice cast is good. Bruce Campbell's in a few episodes
Fun.
as like a tournament, like as a tournament announcer who looks like Modoc, and it's just Bruce Campbell's giant head.
Nice. Apparently him and Zachary Levi are feuding on Twitter now.
Oh no.
Zachary Levi is taking the box office bombing of Shazam very hard. And he's sort of been lashing out at people. And apparently Bruce Campbell roasted its box office failure, and so now he's mad at Bruce Campbell.
Well, I mean, why do you like what was the roast?
I don't know. I only read the headline that said that they were having issues. And I was like, "Oh, Zachary Levi, you're someone who should probably learn to shut the hell up." Zachary Levi has done a very poor job at not being inflammatory towards his own fan base.
Oh no. He's the kind of guy that's like, I'm gonna blame my fans. Or like it sounds like the equivalent of the stand-up comedian that blames the audience after they bomb.
So where it started was when he was first promoting the first Shazam movie. He got a question about the Snyder cut, and he was very vocally saying it didn't exist. And so that already like put a number of Snyder fans against him, and they felt very vindicated when it did exist. But the truth of the matter is, I'm like honestly in that situation, he should have just said, "I don't know anything about it," which would have been the truth, the honest truth from him. Uh, but no, he said it didn't exist, and he didn't just say it didn't exist. He was like kind of making fun of the idea of it existing, and so that made them unhappy. And then when this new movie bombed, he outright went on, I believe it was Instagram or something, to make a video where he called out DC fans for wanting their own movies to fail. And he was very, and then he called out The Rock, and now, and
I mean, you're calling out everyone except for like the actual reasons why these movies are failing.
well,
I just don't think the movie market.
mm-hmm.
I honestly think like big budget movie, like how theaters work right now is changing so dynamically that these movies just aren't gonna make the amount of money they used to.
Mm-hmm.
Just with what COVID did how I'm looking at like big movie releases and whatnot. I just don't think it's ever gonna be the same, at least if not for a while. But I think it's like where we've reached that point where we're not going back
Mhm.
to these gigantic releases. We'll see some pops.
I mean, that Top Gun movie made $1 billion.
Yeah. And I think we're gonna definitely see that, but I don't think it's gonna be as frequent. People are very I feel like people have adapted to, oh, this big release will come out on HBO Max really quickly. I don't need to go to the movie theaters anymore as much.
Mhm.
I could be wrong on this. I'm just kind of looking at like at least how it's lined up right now. Also, DC movies just have a bad rap
I mean,
because their quality is inconsistent.
I mean, I have enjoyed I'm a big DC fan and I've enjoyed most of the movies. Even the ones I don't consider to be terribly great. I
I
will
love
say
Birds of Prey.
Birds of Prey is great. Birds of Prey is a lot of fun. I love that movie. I love Black Adam. I really enjoyed that movie.
I watched it recently. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to.
Yeah, no, it's fun and a little subversive. I enjoyed it.
I,
Um,
I was I wasn't expecting Dr. Fate there, and I was that he that dude chewed up the scenery really well.
mhm. He is sadly the reason the movie was banned from China. They lost their China release because at some point someone in China found out that Pierce Brosnan had said something nice about the Dalai Lama once.
Yeah,
So I guess
sounds.
Pierce Brosnan not
Mm,
welcome in China now. But
that's and then other fans want to say, "Oh, don't get political." It's like, well, get mad at them.
mhm. A lot of the people who say they hate it when things are political, like, aren't don't
They're not
understand
thinking,
don't understand nuance well enough to even understand when things are political. Like,
or that the fact that every piece of media they ever enjoyed growing up was always explicitly political. Like every last person that I would talk to that says I don't like it when things get political, if I ask them their list of favorite media that shaped them,
mhm.
I guarantee you 100% that shit is highly politicized. The moment they say X-Men, I'm slapping them. like
Oh
the
yeah,
moment they say, "Oh look, I love the X-Men," just slap them right in the face. I'm like, nope, you're getting a slap. Because
yeah, no,
how is
like,
that? How do you not see that? Like
hmm
Professor Xavier, Magneto,
yeah, like
MLK, Malcolm X, like civil rights movement. It's like it's in
it
your face.
it is a very open thing that like the X-Men, like Stanley has actively said he didn't really know what to do with the X-Men after he created them, but the following writers who did figure it out, it's an open thing that they're basically like at a certain point we started seeing it as a metaphor for like civil rights. And like it's very
Across all
clear that
kinds of different groups. It's
yeah,
not just like
yeah,
for Black people. It's like LGBTQ,
yeah.
different races. The fact that like there is a reason why Magneto is a Holocaust survivor.
Mhm. Yeah,
Like these are it's
absolutely.
clear in the text.
Absolutely. And like even but yeah, that other thing you mentioned there is also true. Like X-Men has always had a huge LGBTQ following. That's just a fact. Um so that actually maybe we can transition into talking about the X-Men cartoons.
Ooh, wait, before let me finish off that. Let me put the
Okay.
let me put the finishing touches on Megas XLR because I do want to talk about the X-Men cartoon.
Okay.
Um, for Mega, the reason why I said Megas XLR will never be released on anything
Mhm.
is because that was a victim of Cartoon Network at the time was running into money issues. So they sold off Megas XLR. So I think it is the property of the government and no one has any rights to its distribution. So Cartoon Network cannot do anything with it. It is in a similar, I don't know if it's the same situation, but similar situation as some HBO Max properties like Infinity Train
Mhm. Yeah.
where we will aside from illegally downloading Megas XLR to the last of my knowledge, there's no legal way to access that stuff without fine like you'd have to torrent it or something.
Yeah.
So it's lost media, a little bit. Well, I mean, it's not lost. You could definitely find it online, but like there's no legal way to get your hands on it. And it really sucks because like it's a good show, but because of money, it is gone. And that's why I wasn't too surprised by what was happening with the HBO Max stuff when it went down last year, where I'm like, this has happened before.
Yeah. I mean,
This isn't
honestly,
the first time a company has put the axe to something and made it disappear.
it's one of the reasons I'm a big fan of physical media. And also like it shows a big problem with the whole streaming service distribution. Like,
Preservation is an issue.
yeah, like I really enjoyed the movie American Pickle that they released on HBO Max, but now I can't watch it. Yeah, it's gone. And it's honestly, I think it's honestly one of Seth Rogen's funnier movies.
I and it's frustrating because like we've kind of been conditioned to kind of like just eat from the platters we're given,
Mm-hmm.
and preservation just kind of dies because of that, because there'll be some stuff that is exclusive to streaming, doesn't get a physical release, doesn't get a, at the very least, some kind of way of it being preserved
Mm-hmm.
outside of these services. Because once those services tank or uh, properties exchange hands, there's going to be rights issues, and sometimes the show doesn't make that move over. So then no one can ever access it again,
Mm-hmm.
aside from the aforementioned acts of wanton greed and piracy. So
Absolutely.
ARG, that's the only way you're going to get American Pickle and Megas XLR is by hopping on the old Bay of Pirates.
Yep. And that's the real tragedy of like contemporary like media and art. All this digital crap is in the air.
I don't want to veer all the way into it
Yeah.
because I'm not trying to sidetrack it too hard, but that is a huge issue in video games.
Oh yeah, no, that's what's going on right now with the Nintendo eShops on 3DO, I mean 3DS
3DS.
and Wii U.
There's a plethora of games that never got physical releases, and once they're gone, they're gone. They're never coming back.
Yeah.
And that's without even going into games that have DLC that changes the game dramatically, or games that had a physical release but then had a day one or like week later patch that fixed the game because it came with a game breaking glitch. Because there are a variety of physical games that have those level glitches, and if they don't get a reprint that just packages in that day one patch, that game is useless if you buy it.
Wow, that's a great point. And that shit's probably harder to hack on a console than on a PC.
Depends on the console. Like the good thing is like you can, PS3 emulation is a thing and it's pretty stable. So it's like we can go back at least that far. PS3, Xbox 360, I think you can emulate those pretty well. But like PS4, I haven't followed the emulation scene in a while, so I don't know where that's at.
Yeah, I
Most
don't.
of them have PC releases though, so but then they're still exclusives. It sucks.
Yeah, no. The loss of being able to protect video games and I mean all kinds of digital media, honestly. Like when I think about like books, like there's a part of me that's like we've we've found books like from like hundreds of years ago. But like the reality is that if an ancient civilization had a version of the internet with all their data in like a cloud, it's just gone.
Yeah.
Well, like we'll never find out about it
Yeah.
unless we go back and find ye old ancient memory stick.
And a way to retrieve it.
Yeah, no, that's the other thing is that like when I think about that type of like thing, like if aliens came down and they'd have to find an N64 to plug an N64 cartridge into. They
Yeah.
they wouldn't necessarily immediately have the information they would need to understand what the technology was.
Yeah. I
Very
mean, which why it helps if there's one place where it's all kind of like categorized and stuff. Like it it's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But going back on the
Yes,
animation trail, you wanted to talk about the X-Men cartoon.
I
I'm
did.
assuming I'm
I did
assuming
mention.
you mean Kitty Pryde in the X-Men?
Uh I guess there's so many X-Men cars.
Or Wolverine in the X-Men?
In all honesty, the one I watched, the one I saw, and this was just a timing thing on when I got really into cartoons, but the one I saw the most was actually X-Men Evolution.
I
Uh,
love X-Men Evolution. It was so good.
yeah, no, I mean, I understand some people didn't like it because it was like an alternate take with like making like with like bringing X-Men back to the roots of being teenagers.
It felt very much like a teen drama.
Yeah, no, and like I dug that when I was that.
But like, and it still had just enough Wolverine to work, but it felt very much like the
I
work
like,
they did with like Mystique was really cool, Nightcrawler was really cool, Kitty
yeah,
Pryde. Like they died. I think it was a pretty fun show.
yeah, no, I liked X-Men Evolution a lot. And it had like a lot of people, lot like the thing about the original X-Men cartoon, which is still great, but like, did it look a lot like the comics? Yes. In terms of the art design and like the animation, it looked a lot like the cartoon. But like the animation in X-Men Evolution is clearly smoother. Like it's
Oh yeah, like the original X-Men cartoon is stiff.
yeah, yeah. Um
There's a stiffness to it, and then also like the way it's directed and done, there's a high level of melodrama in it.
yeah, which I don't object to.
Which like if you want to compare it to the three super like at that time, I remember three big superhero cartoons in my youth. There was X-Men, Spider-Man, and Batman the Animated Series. And Batman the Animated Series was the better show
Mhm.
by a extremely wide margin. Like
Yeah,
just
no, it was
quality wise, like talking about objective quality. I'm like,
mhm.
this show is just way better in every category.
Yeah, it was groundbreak. It was a groundbreaking show that pushed against the boundaries of what people thought was could be done with kids animation. And the choice
But I also think like X-Men was important because it was like a middle ground where it was trying to catch up with Batman and it was still telling good stories. Just like it felt very
it was very
pulpy and like kept within.
it was still you could still trace like its influences and whatnot to the way they made cartoons like G.I. Joe.
Yeah, and it was very comic booky, might not be the word, but it's like it feels,
I mean, they are comic book shows.
yeah, corny. No, that's not the word I'm looking for
No,
either.
I know what you're talking about because I tried to watch the series on Disney Plus a little while ago, and there is like an element of like um I don't know. I mean, you may have nailed it with the melodrama comment, because it is like there's this very heightened sense to it all, and whatnot. And yet, whenever people like complain that like things should be more like that version of the X-Men because it's the most like the comics, I always want to be like, they didn't do everything like the comics, man.
Yeah,
I mean, like the
like
very
stylistically, yes. Like there's some shot for shot recreations of certain comic books or stuff that looks very, very close, like the Dark Phoenix saga. Well,
yeah.
I didn't do everything in the Dark Phoenix saga, but like there's definitely a lot of like, oh, I remember reading that in the comic books because I got it from the library. And this looks
Well,
very
like
close to child me.
like the like the like the first episode or like the pilot episode though itself is like a remake of the Night of the Sentinels, but they've replaced Kitty Pryde with Jubilee.
Yeah, the new point of view character.
Yeah, so like that, it's not comic perfect. Everybody,
Yeah,
everything makes changes. Don't delude
yeah.
yourself.
And also, like they don't use Jubilee as much. Like they use her as a point of view character, and then they kind of ditch her for. Well, I mean, they use her for the stories they got to use her for.
Yeah, that's fair.
Um, and
Batman.
also, I think
No, I was just gonna say Batman the animated series though is is truly is a really groundbreaking show in a number of ways. Um,
Like the only thing I think might punch within its weight level is Gargoyles, and even then, Gargoyles falls into a melodrama issue, especially in the later seasons.
I I wish I could say I've seen Gargoyles, but I actually haven't.
It's on Disney Plus.
I,
If
I,
ever there's a show that you will watch and afterwards go like, why aren't you making a live action remake of this? Like, I feel like Disney has a plethora of animated properties that are perfect for remaking. It's just the remakes that need to happen are not like Pinocchio.
mhm.
It's not like I don't need a live action remake of Pinocchio or Dumbo or any of that stuff. We need a remake of Atlantis that's like a live action adventure movie, or a remake of Treasure Planet, or a remake of Gargoyles. These are shows that would work within a live medium.
Gargoyles, from the little I've seen of it, always gave me sort of like a little bit of a Ninja Turtles vibe in certain regards. Maybe not in terms of like the characters or even like the energy, but
The
like
setup.
but yeah, the setup. They have their
The
female
only thing,
friend who's a human, and then like they are these powerful beings that like hide in the shadows and whatnot, and then they have reason to basically become superheroes.
yeah, because when I think of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I think the formula is like choose an animal or creature thing, make them teens with attitudes. But like your breakdown is also just as valid. But I'm thinking of stuff like Street Sharks, Biker Mice from
Oh yeah,
Mars, Cowboys and Moo Mesa. Those are all like literally just copy and paste it from the blueprint that was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But Gargoyles kind of is too. Also, the Mighty Ducks, like that cartoon as well,
I
is
have
definitely.
I have actually not seen that one.
It's got Tim Curry in it, but that's not anything special because Tim Curry was in every cartoon in the 90s.
There actually was a comic book ripoff of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles called Radioactive Karate Hamsters. Uh, they may have uh, there may have had a word for an alternate word for teenager in there too. I can't remember exactly, but I remember the radioactive and the karate and the hamsters. Uh, but yeah, no, Ninja Turtles was had a high impact on the pop culture of that time, and
Like
we almost forgotten a key important part of the formula, which is favorite food. That they they
they
those
have to
shows.
have like a favored food.
Yeah, no, because at some point, cartoon executives thought that was like the type of character development that children could really appreciate.
That's why Sonic likes chili dogs of all things.
Yeah.
He had to have a favorite food. Um, but if you ever get a chance, watch Gargoyles.
Okay.
Um, Let me give you a short list of why you might like it and
Okay.
why I honestly believe you'll love it. Um, One, the voice cast is fucking loaded.
Nice.
Like Keith David's the guy who did like Faucilier from
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I know
Princess
who
and the
you're talking.
Frog.
Yeah, I know who you're
Uh,
talking.
he does Goliath, freaking strong ass vocal roles. And the rest of the voice cast is was it Jonathan Frakes from Star Trek: The Next Generation?
Okay. Yeah.
Was it
Riker.
yeah, Riker? He does one of the lead villains, Xanatos. And when he may be one of the greatest cartoon villains I've ever seen. Like they made a trope for him called the Xanatos Gambit because it's called like even when the villain loses, they still win because the guy was so intelligent that he would set up backups to his backups to his backups. So he's always moving forward with every plan he makes. And typically in a cartoon like a cartoon show, a villain will get weaker the more they lose.
Mm-hmm.
That's the
It,
problem with
yeah.
Megatron. That's the problem with Skeletor. They lose all of their presence as a threat because they're used to them getting their asses tanned every week.
Yeah.
This doesn't happen to Xanatos. One, there's far more villains that are involved in the story, And two, because of the way that the Xanatos Gambit functions, it always makes him one step ahead of the heroes. So he never loses that threat factor. Also, they allow him to change as a character as the story goes.
Wow.
Um, Also, he has probably one of the greatest lines I've ever heard in a TV show,
Oh,
which
yeah.
sounds like Shakespeare of the like pay a man enough and he'll walk barefoot through hell. And I first heard that quote, I was like, oh, that's a neat quote. I was like, what's that from? Gargoyles? Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
That
no,
line is cold as hell.
yeah, no, it is. Okay, I'm definitely gonna have to check out Gargoyles.
Also, most of the writing cast were people from like most of the writers were from Star Trek The Next Generation. So the level of writing is on point.
Fascinating.
Uh, it mixes a lot of mythology in there. So if you have like a kick for like references to Shakespeare, mythology, that kind of stuff, it's a good time.
Wow, okay.
It'll definitely make you sit and go like,
Oh no.
it's good.
Okay, you cut out there for a good like maybe 10, 20 seconds.
Oh, I said, people out there, if you haven't watched Gargoyles, fucking do it.
You heard it
Just
here. Joseph Lewis endorses Gargoyles.
all day, every day.
Okay, well I'm definitely gonna have to watch that. I want to talk about Batman the Animated Series a little bit, which is a
Yes.
show I've tried to rewatch and was actually more difficult than I anticipated. Um,
How?
well, there are certain elements that, like, at the time, there are certain elements like of obvious like censorship, where like the cartoonist had to make certain choices to make it more acceptable for like the age range, like Joker using a lot of robots is actually kind of a weird thing. Like it's not a thing that happens in the comics very much at all. Uh
Then, but we would have never gotten Captain Clown. But I totally see what you mean.
um oh yeah, yeah. Um and like the big the biggest points of censorship that kind of like make me like irk me about that show though are definitely like, I mean, I get it. You can't like explicitly go into like what makes Bane an interesting character in a kids show like that. Like
Yeah,
I
you can't
know,
go into straight up drug addiction.
like this is a man. This is a man who was born in prison and is just has had a life of dog eat dog trauma, and like he has made himself into a monster to thrive in that type of environment. It's like no,
I
it's,
mean, he was the least focused on of the gallery.
yeah, because it's hard to do with kids. Because it's hard to do with a kids show. I mean, they did as good of it. Like, and I also, I they created the concept that like Bane like grows grotesquely huge when he uses venom, and like that's always kind of like annoyed me because it always felt so unnecessary to me. Like, because in the comics, like the way it's described as working is that venom is supposed to operate on like the part of your like adrenal system that like normally people can only act like when a woman can like lifts a car off a child, like the thing
Yeah,
that makes your brain do that is supposed to be what venom does to you, so that your body can unlock that untapped muscular strength. But then like in the cartoon, like they take it and he like hulks out, and then
yeah,
like a number of other adaptations were like, yeah, we're gonna do that. And like it only became more progressively ridiculous as more adaptations used it. Like I hated it in Batman and Robin. Like the
it speaks to the transformative power of the adventures of Batman and Robin in a negative way. Because
yeah,
typically we talk about what they introduced that changed most of Batman canon, like the introduction of Harley Quinn, the
yeah,
relationship between Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy,
yeah,
um,
yeah, exactly.
um, Baby Doll is a character. A lot of characters there are a lot of second stringer villains that got fleshed out and made who they are now. Like I think Mr. Freeze was not a huge
Oh yeah.
like Batman rogue until they did Heart of Ice, and that pretty much reestablished the character.
Oh yeah, it defined him for an entire generation and definitely elevated like his fandom status. Um,
But then you have what they did to Bane, which I have a friend who's a big friend of fan of Bane, and he loves like the comic book version and how they actually depict him. Like one, like was he a Spanish or Mexican guy?
he is technically half Swiss, half Caribbean.
Huh.
Because he
Then I
is
must have seen a different version of that.
Santa Presca is a fictional Caribbean island. And his mother is supposed to have been from the island, and his father was supposed to be was a mercenary whose code name was the Swiss. And now to be fair, I don't actually know if that confirms his ethnic origin, but he later is revealed to be the character King Snake, who is a Robin villain, who is basically a blind martial arts master.
Mm. Love to see those guys.
But yeah, no, he is like he is I think that would technically make him Latino.
Okay. Yeah,
Uh,
because there's something about like having a character with a different like ethnic background that you're not used to seeing, and his high level of intelligence
mhm.
that is refreshing for like people that don't look like the average like person that is appealed to in these things, like your cis het white male. So like I had a friend that was really into that. It's like, yo, this is a villain that's highly intelligent on the level of Batman, figures out his secret identity, is able to do his own stuff. Uh, and he was never like a huge fan of like why you gotta Hulk out like that.
Yeah, no,
Like the same way
I
as you.
agree with him. I agree with you with your other.
Like it's a waste of an idea of a character. It turns into another heavy, and Batman already has enough.
Oh no! Damn you, weather.
What happened?
You cut out again. It was the weather.
Oh
I'm pretty sure it's the weather interfering with it.
yeah,
But you were
we
saying
we
he got turned into another heavy, and then what?
there's already Batman already has enough heavies with like Killer
Mhm.
Croc and even Clayface.
Yeah, no, Clayface I would count as a heavy. He has all the physical strength that one would expect from a heavy. Oh no! Oh, there it goes. Okay, it wasn't as
Yeah.
long that time. Uh, and also I don't think you were saying anything, so it's okay. Uh, yeah, no, I would have to agree with these assessments of Bane. Like, it also annoyed me in Arkham City, when they made him that way. I was like, come on, man. Ah, crap! It keeps going in and out.
Series. Oh, you cut it out again.
Yeah, no, it keeps cutting in and out. Do you want to try and leave the room and come back in?
I can.
Not every adaptation choice the Batman Adventures made was super benefit. I would say the other character that I really felt like that series hurt was Tim Drake.
What Tim Drake's the kid, right?
The second. Well, in the comics, he's the third Robin. But apparently, what happened is essentially the cartoon channel was like, no, you can't do Jason Todd. We know what happens to Jason Todd. You can't do Jason Todd. So they took a
And
character who was already meant to be Jason Todd, and they just changed their name to Tim Drake.
and then they and then there was the Batman Beyond movie where they're like, okay, we're gonna do the story anyway.
I mean, kind of. But that was a straight to video, so
Yeah,
so
and that movie's glorious too.
TV couldn't stop them then. It was
Yeah,
different higher ups.
I mean that movie's also pretty violent. Like there's some deaths there,
I'm not
body count
surprised.
in that movie.
The the other the other the other this one is actually probably one of the few bad choices they've made that the fans are actually vocally opposed to, which is Any romance between Batgirl and Batman?
Yeah, I'm pretty against that. It's the age
Yeah,
differences. It's creepy.
yeah, no,
Um, it's
it is.
it's the workplace thing, and it's like, yo, like it's mentor and
And
protege,
mentee.
and
It's also you're you're friends with my dad.
yeah,
There's a
there's a
lot.
lot of creepy things there. It's one of the reasons why I could not watch the Killing Joke movie, is
It's not.
because that's
Yeah, no, the Killing Joke movie is very disappointing, to be honest.
I saw a
Like,
breakdown where they like even broke down how the scenes flow. It's like visually there's a one to one, but they lose a lot of the finer details that are within the comic that really flesh it out. Also, the comic's like only 40 pages. It's not a long thing. And the movie's like what, an hour?
I mean,
The Killing Joke should have just been a 20-minute short at most.
well, I mean that not necessarily. That's not necessarily. I mean, if you, typically when you would adapt a comic, because they're comics actually are cutting a lot of comic books are going to read shorter than they would adapted, because a movie has to show you what happens in between the panels. So it's
Yeah.
so it should be at least like 40 to 50 minutes long. Uh,
Well, I think it depends on what the comic is showing.
that's fair. That's fair.
Because I think like a lot of Killing Joke is like establishing shots and mood and setting up character stuff. And
To be
it's
fair,
effective because of lack of dialogue at points.
it
Adding
is
more
also
dialogue doesn't solve the problems.
to be fair, it is also an Alan Moore comic, so there's a lot of pages that utilize the 9 panel layout. So it can read longer than some comics of equivalent size, but
That's true.
but like they do the one of the things about the movie is that like it feels that the solution to like the Batgirl controversy is to make her more of a figure in the film, but it does it really badly. Because all it does is it throws on like this opening chapter where basically it's getting us to know Batgirl and her place in the universe, and there's like a throwaway villain in it that she's focused on, and then like it ends and like it barely mattered at all. Like it doesn't tie
Yeah.
into anything effectively. It's
It makes the fridging worse.
Yeah, in a way, yeah, yeah. In a way, it does, because actually it turns it into fridging, because without that extra chapter, she's not a love interest.
Yeah.
So like it went from being a thing that was kind of a fridging to a fridging.
Yeah. And I think was it, I saw an interview at some point where Alan Moore went back and was like, you know what? The impetus of Killing Joke, like the setup for it, yeah, that wasn't cool on my part. I did my girl characters I did my girl characters dirty. The story, because like you could tell the story of Killing Joke and write the justification of how Gordon got there as not Barbara being fridged in that way. Like there are ways to get there, and there's ways to break Gordon that isn't something that's like taking this route is like the weakest writing choice. A weak writing choice. I don't think it's the weakest. I think the movie proved what the weakest writing choices were.
That's fair. I just for anyone in the audience who is not familiar with the term fridging. The term fridging is a reference to a now infamous Green Lantern comic book where he arrives back at his apartment to find that a supervillain has murdered his girlfriend and put her in his refrigerator. This has actually been a trope throughout comic book history, and actually movies and TV, where the whole idea is that you hurt or kill a female character who is emotionally connected to the main character. The most egregious versions of this, of course, being when a character is invented specifically to fridge them.
Yeah. Now, cases of faux fridging where someone may want to call it fridging, but it definitely isn't, is like not Mary Jane. What's her face? Falls from a
Gwen
bridge.
Stacy. Gwen Stacy.
Gwen Stacy. My argument is she wasn't fridged. That shit was built up, and that's a tragedy. Like,
I mean, yeah, there's got to be some level at which you can kill important loved characters.
yeah, because I'm just trying to say like, there's no like, this isn't a flat thing that happens all the
Yeah.
time. It's like, yo, girl characters can die, and there's ways to make it right. Because also in the case of Gwen Stacy, she had years and years of character build-up, and that was a moment that could not have been foreseen.
It's generally thought of as being a very impactful and like heartbreaking moment. It's not found, people don't generally think of it as being as exploitative as some of the more blatant fridging of characters. I mean, to be fair though, in fairness, to a certain level, the revenge genre is all about fridging. Like,
yeah.
Like, although I will say, in John Wick's defense, technically they don't fridge his wife; they fridge his dog.
I mean, Punisher is built off of that, so.
Oh yeah, they fridged his entire family.
So I mean, yeah, like all the revenge stuff is definitely like that.
Yeah.
If we're talking about Batman the animated series, then you can't you really got to acknowledge the whole Bruce Timm animated universe, because like that opened up the doors to Superman, Static Shock, Justice League Unlimited.
Yeah.
I consider Justice League Unlimited to be peak DC animation.
I would agree with that. Justice League Unlimited, like the first Justice League series is great, but Justice League Unlimited is really where it becomes just like one of the greatest superhero things ever.
It is a celebration of everything DC, and it is fantastic.
Yeah.
Like there's an episode where they do throwbacks to Booster Gold, throwbacks to Silver and Bronze Age heroes.
There's an episode where Green Arrow and the Question have to team up,
leading to some of the most hilarious lines in the whole show.
Also, because they're so philosophically like diametrically opposed. It's perfect.
It's like the little caps at the end of your shoelaces are called aglets. Their true purposes are disturbing. I was like, God, that character is just great. Also, it gave us more Amanda Waller. True. And god damn, is Amanda Waller one of like the powerhouses within the DC animated series. CCH Pounder frickin' knocks it out the park with her vocal performances.
Oh yeah, Amanda Waller is like honestly one of the unsung like heroes, probably not the right term, but like unsung characters of the DC universe. Like she is literally just like, she has so many she was intersectional before anyone was talking about being intersectional. Like she's a strong what's the
strong black woman?
Strong big black woman too is the other thing. Like she didn't conform to like
body type standards.
Yeah, no, exactly.
They could have made her super femme fatale, or like there's a lot of different ways you could do with it.
They tried to make her thin in the New 52. I am so glad it did not stick. I was so
like glad. How you gonna call the character the kind of a dig against her in that way, calling her the Wall, now that I think about it. But still,
I mean, her last name is Waller, so like,
yeah, that's also a thing.
Also, she's stubborn as hell.
Yeah,
like she's like,
I mean,
she won't let Batman intimidate her.
She won't let Superman intimidate her.
Yeah, no.
She goes toe to toe with Lex Luthor, knowing full well that he was possessed by freaking Brainiac, and still went in the room going like, "All right, you don't got any superpowers, lady."
Yeah,
I got gumption though.
Yeah, and yeah, no, I love Viola Davis as her in the live action movies too.
Oh yeah,
I think Viola Davis is great. I think that's She does a great job with the part.
Like these are just all around just great, just a great show. Was all that stuff like
Yeah.
seeing, and it built on the show did a really good job in building on everything that came before it. So like there are references to Superman the animated and Batman. Like there's this built-in canon that it pulls from consistently, and it's good.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, like the DC animated universe of that time is why I have a love of DC.
I can understand that. I loved DC before that. My parents were not into television. When I was a kid, the only television I could watch was PBS. So I didn't really get into I didn't start getting into cartoons really until I was like probably around 16 or 17. At which point I just started watching cartoons all the time. It was like we didn't have the no TV rule anymore, and suddenly I could watch them. And like the big ones that I watched at that during that period of time. Although like I did also watch things from the library. So like all the Ninja Turtles I watched were pretty much on videotape. I only saw the Care Bears movie. I didn't watch the show as a kid. And I mean I'd see stuff on cable when we were on vacation. But like the big shows that I remember like being into when I actually started watching cartoons were Batman, what was it? Batman: The New Adventures. It was like when they did the second generation of Batman the animated series, and they
Oh, the
changed
character redesigns.
Yeah, they did the character. I mean, it was the same continuity, but it was different character designs. And now Dick Grayson was Nightwing, and
Yeah,
and whatnot. So I
they
I
changed
watched.
how the Joker looked. They changed how
Yeah,
Catwoman looked. It was some of the redesigns, like Scarecrow, were fantastic. Other ones were like,
when I
yeah,
think I don't like the BDSM Bane. I'm like actually in general I don't like the mouth hole on Bane. Like a lot of cartoons do the mouth hole, and I never liked the mouth.
yeah. I I liked Killer Croc's redesign. I liked. I thought Joker's redesign was okay.
Mm-hmm.
The little beady black eyes weren't as expressive,
Mm-hmm.
but it did lead to some great comedic moments in there. So I feel like they made that character work. Scarface seemed weird to me. It seemed too like everything had an angular look, so a more angular look in those ones. So that made sense.
True. It looked a tiny bit more anime.
I mean, also considering the production of that show, a lot of the action scenes were done by TMS. So that is, if you ever want to stop and watch certain episodes of Batman the Animated Series, um, a lot of the animation is done by TMS, anime production company, and some of those scenes are anime as fuck if you break down how they're animated and like how they flow. Like it is astounding. Like sometimes they go to some of your favorite shows and see certain scenes, sequences, and episodes, and go like, who in the world, who in around the world in animation had their hands on this episode?
Oh, there's actually this reminds me of an interesting like Batman trope that comes from the cartoon also, um which is when we see Batman fighting someone and we only see the shadow of the fight.
Mm.
Which Christopher Nolan uses in Batman Begins and stuff. But like that trope specifically came from the cartoon because cartoons had so many restrictions on like violence in kids' cartoons. Like we
So they had to
mentioned this,
find ways stylishly get through it.
yeah, no, exactly. Like a good example is like one of the things we don't talk about this. Like actually, some people do talk about it now, but like the Spider-Man cartoon at the same time. At some point, someone realized that Spider-Man never punches anybody
Oh no,
in the cartoon.
he just judo tosses people.
Yeah, he throws people, he does some swinging kicks, he like throws stuff at people, he like webs people, but like the show wasn't allowed to show people punching each other in the face. So so like the action and like animators were constantly trying to get around this. Like had to get around this to make fight scenes.
Yeah, I mean, you even see that in Samurai Jack. There's a reason why 90% of his enemies are robotic.
That's what they did in, yeah, same thing for Ninja Turtles. It's
It's
also
like, oh, you can chop whatever you want in half now. Just don't give it a conscience. Oh, you did? You can still chop it in half, I guess. We're still a robot.
the other big thing that Batman the Animated Series had to push back against was that there was a rule against having guns in children's cartoons. Which is why if you like watch an old like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle cartoon, when the cops show up, they don't have guns, they have laser rifles. Like laser rifles are okay.
I mean,
Because kids can't get their hands on laser rifles.
and then like at the time, like that's also when shows were being accused of being more and more violent, which leads me to another deep cut show that I don't know if you've ever seen, but have you ever seen SWAT Cats?
I actually have seen a couple episodes of SWAT Cats because it was on Boomerang.
That show, reeling back the whole anime thing, is anime as fuck. Like there are literally episodes where I was like, did I stop and walk into an anime? The way that this is animated, some of these character designs, literally in an anime studio did this. Um, that show is violent as hell. Like there is one episode where there's a giant blob thing in the subway system, and it devours a train. And you see the blob, like the train goes into the blob, and then it becomes part of it. And for a kid show, you usually assume once the monster is defeated, everyone will come out okay. The train will get coughed up, the people will come out. Let me tell you, they destroy the blob creature by dragging him on the third rail of the tracks and melting him down. Nothing comes out of this goo when he perishes. Everyone in that train is dead. There are consistently times, because this is a show about dogfight, two cats that have a dogfighting plane. There are consistently times when planes get blown up and not a parachute is in sight. No, there are no survivors in the show.
So
Also,
like
they crash a plane through a window and smack a bad guy with it.
so like this is an interesting thing about like, and this has been going on in like media forever, which is the idea of like there's violence, but certain types of violence are ambiguous. like like a thing that like it was a hot topic a couple years ago. Actually, it probably still is in certain parts of the internet. But like was the idea of Batman killing people. And the thing was is that when they first made Batman, he didn't really have a problem with killing people. But at a certain, but like then there was an issue of the comic where he like shoots a vampire while he's sleeping, and DC was suddenly like, we don't want this anymore. No more killing. He can't kill people. But like even after that, a classic Batman move would be that they would like run a car off the road and it would explode. Like it's like Batman still technically kind of killed that guy.
Or whenever you see Batman yeet somebody off of a catwalk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like
yeah.
he's fighting people, and then you see a guy fall off a catwalk, and that catwalk is easily like 5 stories up. And
Yeah.
you're like, come on, man. That man's dead.
The odds are low.
He fell head first.
The odds are low he survived that. Like, but like falling though is like almost like the universal, this is an okay way for characters to die in front of children. Like if you go through Disney animated movies, it happens like almost every Disney villain falls to their death in some way.
Yeah.
Like even when it's not the fall that kills them, it involves falling. Like
Gaston.
Yeah, he falls off a castle. The creepy priest guy from Hunchback of Notre Dame falls into like molten steel or something. Like I forget what it is. Oh, you look frozen. I don't know if you can hear me, but let's see here. The villain in Tarzan. Oh, you're back. Okay. The villain Tarzan, like
I was gonna say Clayton. He technically didn't die from a fall.
He technically gets like hung, But like it's through a fall. Like that is actually one of the more gruesome deaths in a Disney movie, I gotta say.
It's the
Like,
shadow. It's the use of shadows.
yeah, they show the shadow of him being like, oh, he did. Okay. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, falling to your death is generally explosions and falling to your death are for some reason the things we've decided like, oh, kids can see that. That's fine.
There's some
But
gruesome ones in Disney movies, like the bad guy from Atlantis gets turned into a crystal golem thing and then explodes. That was pretty terrifying. Watching him transform. Um, the Horned King from the Black Cauldron.
I have not actually seen the Black Cauldron.
It's boring.
I've heard that, but apparently that movie was actually intended to be much more terrifying.
Yeah, I
There's
mean
like
they succeeded with the how that villain perished. But aside from that, it definitely feels like a lot of things got stripped from it, and its identity is very kind of like milk toast.
that makes sense from what I've read about it.
It also felt like it was trying to compete with the 70s animated adventure movies of the time, like Lord of the Rings,
Mm. Yeah,
at least from as far as I can tell.
yeah, they probably aren't going to compete with Ralph Bakshi.
Ooh, we want to talk about Ralph
Sure, we
Bakshi?
can talk about Ralph Bakshi. Ralph Bakshi is
Yeah,
wild. Um, from his
I
Fritz the
love
Cat,
I love that guy.
from his Fritz the Cat's movies in the '70s, which the creator of Fritz the Cat actually disowned. I'm not sure his exact reasoning. Um, there was Ralph Bakshi is one of the earliest people who was like, I think we should make cartoons for grown-ups.
He was
Like,
actually like he was against Disney. He was
oh
one
yeah,
of the first he was one of the first like indie animation studios to set out and really do it themselves without like Hanna-Barbera or Warner Brothers or Disney backing them.
yeah.
His story is really interesting. Um, and some of the movies he pushed out, like freaking, was it Pinball?
I haven't
Is
seen.
one of them.
Um,
I think it's
I've
called
seen
Pinball.
I've seen Fire and Ice.
Fire and Ice is fun.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of Coonskin.
I have not seen Coonskin. Uh,
That one is fun because the NAACP boycotted that was.
I was gonna say Ralph Bakshi. One of the things that he's known for is he liked to tackle he tackled a lot about like class and race in his movies. Like I'll
And
be
he
honest,
kind of
I'll be honest. Until I saw a picture of him, I wasn't sure if he would be white or not.
I'm fairly sure he's like a white Jewish guy.
I think so. Yeah.
Um, and the way that he handles characterization is, I'm going to show everyone as equally caricatured. He takes that kind of measure where like there is no byline where there is a race that is treated as like normal in a way. Everyone's going to get the character be caricatured,
Mm-hmm.
and you see that. And there's a lot of care in how they do the depictions of the characters, even though there's some offensive stereotypes that are used there. Like in the Fritz movies, black people are almost always depicted as crows. Coonskin, that's a little bit different. They do use different characters, from a
So what is
bear
the
to the
concept of
rabbit.
what is the concept of coonskin?
Coonskin is a modern retelling of the Briar Rabbit stories,
Oh,
using and actually, unlike
like
Song of the
Disney's
South,
version?
it is way better than Song of the South. One, it's not boring. Because that's that movie's greatest sin. It's not that it's racist; it's that it's boring and slightly racist. But not really, though.
The
If you
only thing
really boil it down,
the only thing from Song of the South that has survived is the Zippity Doodah song.
yeah. It's like, as far as like when people talk about like racism in animation, it's like, as far as like racism in animation, Song of the South does definitely do bad things. It's an Uncle Remus tale thing. You're going in the uh, um, going into some magical Negro territory with those kind of
Hmm.
stories.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some issues there, but not nearly as bad as like the Band 11, like the Warner Brothers cartoons that got banned, that are openly just super racist, like the one
Yeah.
where Bugs Bunny goes to Africa
Yeah.
and fights a bunch of cannibals. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
those types of cartoons are
Yeah.
openly terrible. Um, they still have funny bits. I'm still going to say, like, the animators still put out good art. Um, it's just problematic art.
Yeah. That's fair.
But
Uh,
to for Coonskin, it is a retelling of the prior Rabbit stories using a the narrative device that sets it up is that two guys are escaping from prison, and the older guys like sharing stories while they're doing this, and all the connective tissue is live action, and then it cuts to the animated bits because Ralph Bakshi liked to merge mediums and use
yeah.
like whether it be using rotoscope or live action stuff, painted backgrounds, where he would do live action stuff and like maybe paint certain elements of it, or just wholesale use uh, filmed bits as the backgrounds for characters.
Yeah. He was
Uh,
very experimental like that.
and it gives some really cool effects. And also his use of like the idea of like urban living and um, I want to draw a parallel between like some of his work and Hey Arnold a little
Okay.
bit, but it's all style, not really in themes. It's like they just kind of rub me kind of similarly. Like Hey Arnold is definitely its own different thing, and would love to talk about that sometime too, because that show is
Okay.
incredible. But
I am only a little familiar with Hey Arnold, because it was one of those shows I would just watch on vacation when I had access to cable occasionally. Uh, but yes, continue with your telling me about Coonskin.
and then so basically the whole story is like a set of little stories following the rabbit and his friends, uh, who are all coded black, fighting against the mob, police, and trying to find their place in the city. And it is set into like I think a set of like three stories that converge at the end, or like
Makes
all
sense.
wrap up near the end.
I mean,
Uh,
that's solid structuring.
and they use elements of the Briar Rabbit story, like the tar baby, like the tar rabbit thing. They use him being a trickster, uh, and the three central characters are like Reverend Fox, the rabbit, and the bear, who's a boxer in there. And their story elements weave around each other. And it's a fun little watch. Definitely go into it knowing it's a product of its time. It does use offensive stereotypes, but everyone gets it. Like the treatment that he gives, like the mafia, is like Ralph Bakshi has been noted saying like he hates The Godfather, and he's like, why are we idolizing these goons that are killing, like basically killing the teens and kids and conscripting them into the like this shit? Like, so he had no passion for them. So the depiction of the mob specifically in Coonskin is very interesting.
Interesting. You have definitely intrigued me. I like Ralph Bakshi's work. I really enjoy the rotoscope look. When I was a kid, I know it's not a popular adaptation of Lord of the Rings, but when I was a kid, I really liked to watch the Ralph Bakshi Lord of the Rings movie. Um, I
Is that the
thought,
one where there's a whip?
I it's been a while, so I couldn't tell you that for certain. But what I can tell you is that the whole thing is rotoscoped. Like
Mm.
it was all clearly filmed with live actors, and then they rotoscoped over it. I think it's
Oh yeah, that's the first one. Okay, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I haven't seen it in forever. They never made a sequel to it, sadly.
I'm
Um,
thinking of the Rankin Bass ones.
yes, Rankin Bass kind of was like, well, we'll finish the trilogy.
I'm thinking of the Rankin Bass sequels. But
Yeah,
yeah, the first one definitely had the yeah, no, I know exactly
mhm,
what you're talking about.
yeah. I like Rankin Bass stuff too. Like
It's
they
just
create.
so cheesy and fun.
I know, like they created like they created a shared Christmas universe for God's sake.
Like I love those stop motion ones. I
Oh
remember as a
yeah,
kid I had a VHS of like the Easter Bunny one, which was bizarre.
I'm not surprised. A
It
lot of
had
them are
so
bizarre.
many elements. Like
So they made two different Santa Claus origin movies. The first one, of course, is Santa Claus is Coming to Town, which is the one I grew up with. Which is says a lot about me as a kid. I don't know. Like it's literally like Santa Claus is trying to get gifts to this kid's living in a dystopian in a kind of dystopian like fascist anti-toy society. And and
and also the stop motion work is like top notch.
oh yeah, it is good stop motion. It also has like a weird psychedelic song piece in like the middle, sung by the girl character in the future Mrs. Claus. That's just like damn, you can tell it was the 70s. But then they made a new stop motion Santa Claus origin story, which is like Santa Claus meets Lord of the Rings. Like
Hmm.
it's wild. Um, I think it's
I
called
love
like
those.
the life and it's like the life and times of Saint Nicholas or something. Uh,
I think I offhand kind of remember that.
it's
Um,
it's on YouTube. It's worth a watch, or is it on
uh,
Daily Motion? It's on one of them.
was it hand animated?
I mean, it was stop motion.
Okay, okay, I'll have to look it up. I was thinking of a different Life of Times to the Santa Claus
It
movie.
looks a little bit like it looks a little bit like Robot Chicken, to be honest. Um,
Okay,
like it looked like a lot of the characters. You're like, that looks like a doll. But yeah, no,
question.
I love the Rankin Bass stuff.
Question.
Yes.
Uh, did you know that Ralph Bakshi opened up a studio like in the late 80s, 90s to make like children's cartoons?
Um, I did not know that, but I'm also not 100% surprised by that. Although,
And that created a show called the New Adventures of Mighty Mouse.
oh wait, I did know that. I did know that he was. Yeah, I did know he worked on Mighty Mouse. Um,
Because that started the next generation of 90s animators because that was an incubator for like Bruce Timm, uh, John Kerflo, and Jackass from Ren and Stimpy. Also, like the New Adventures of Mighty Mouse is very much feels like a Ren and Stimpy style show. A preview for shows that would be that proliferate the 90s.
Ralph
Um,
Bakshi appeared as a character in the Ren and Stimpy adult show that they had on
yeah.
TNT, which apparently is terrible.
Oh, it's awful. It is so bad. I've seen like original actors like disown the show because it's like, yo, there's a point where it is so gratuitous in its grossness that it loses anything interesting.
I mean, that kind of sums up the creator of Ren and Stimpy himself, who
Yeah, the best work from Ren and Stimpy was when other artists reined him in. When
mhm.
he was a lot like it is definitely looking at John Kay just as an artist before going into the grosser aspects of him as a human fucking being.
He's a bad
Uh,
person.
yeah, he's a bad person. Look him up. It's good times. Fucking douchebag. Uh, it definitely supports my idea that the bigger a piece is, like the bigger art that you're making, it becomes far more collaborative. And good art is fostered when everybody's kind of working together. We want to believe that there is some great auteur that makes what we love and that it is by their hand that everything is created. But 9 times out of 10, that is never true. Like if you look into the actual stories of anything you love, there's always going to be other hands that helped shape it. And without those hands, its identity would have been drastically different.
Like, unless you're writing a novel, yeah,
Yeah.
almost everything else requires some type of other input. And like even a lot of the directors that we think of as like who are referred to as auteurs or whatnot, When you hear actors talk about how they work, there's always like some level of collaboration. Like I've heard Martin Scorsese is real good with actors, and that like it's and the way he works with them. A lot of people like to dog on Zack Snyder, but a lot of actors like he is thought of as an actor's director. Is the way that like actors refer to him because because he allows a lot of freedom for the actors to like characterize. And
Yeah. The only exception to the rule might be like the director of The Shining,
oh
Stanley
yeah,
Kubrick.
Stanley
But
Kubrick.
he's a crazy person.
Yeah, another crazy person, Alfred Hitchcock, who was very disrespectful about actors.
Yeah. It's like you were just the medium that I used to put the things on
Yeah, no,
screen. You don't matter.
he once called actors cattle, which is messed up.
Yeah. So like there's always going to be exceptions, but for the most part, like I'd say also like let's see, yeah, just most directors and creative people like
mhm.
one would say some of the worst work from Star Wars was when George Lucas didn't have someone slapping his hand to
Mhm.
rein him in.
Yeah, or like just having other creative voices doing the work, like the
Michael
original.
Bay is a good example of this too. Like
Okay.
Bad Boys and The Rock and Bad Boys 2 hit hard because there were other people in the room with him saying, "Don't go full into everything you love. We need some balance." But then you go and watch when he's totally unrestrained in his like Transformer movies, and that shit goes off the rails.
Yeah, no, I have a lot of problems with the Transformers movies.
Oof.
My the one I rag on the most is definitely the third movie, because for me that was the most frustrating personally. Um,
I hate them all.
oh, I mean,
The first one's the most palatable,
yeah, the first one is the most watchable,
and
definitely.
I've heard good things about Bumblebee, but that's also not a Michael Bay.
Bumblebee is okay, but like Bumblebee was actually the movie where I was watching it and I was suddenly like, everyone complains about the woke messaging in movies, but then we got movies like Bumblebee that just have this straight up like right wing like subtext like throughout it, and it's like, scientists are well-meaning dumbasses who fuck everything up. Military people are good. You can't trust the aliens. Okay, the 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 dad is sort of even though the dad turns out cool at the end, he's definitely like the 1980s soft male soft effeminate stepdad stereotype. Like
Yeah,
it's like there's a lot of like conservative messaging in the Transformers movies and Michael Bay movies in general.
going into military propaganda.
Oh yeah, heavily.
Uh, but wrangling back into animation,
Yes.
um, God, I hate Michael Bay movies. Or
I
Transformers movies.
I
But
saw Ambulance recently. It was okay.
yeah, I heard good things about that.
I mean,
So I guess I specifically hate the Transformers movies.
like it's partly because it's like a high concept thriller, and like, but honestly, it's mostly what makes it work is that Jake Gyllenhaal and I always fuck up his name, something, the guy who plays Black Manta.
Also, I always contend Michael Bay seems at his best and most comfortable when he's doing like a high concept action type thing.
Mm-hmm.
When he has something that focuses him,
That's a good
I
point.
feel because he's damn good at shooting commercials and he's really good at shooting an action scene, making your eyes go like, ooh, yum yum yum
Yeah.
yum yum.
No, he does a decent job with his photography and whatnot. Although a lot of people have pointed out the fact that he seems to steal a lot of stuff from David Fincher. Uh,
Hmm, I didn't know
like,
that.
oh yeah, no, there's someone on YouTube made like a comparison shot where it's like comparing shots from David Fincher and Michael Bay movies, and it's like,
Oh,
okay, yeah, no, it does look a lot like he's stealing some of these shots here. Um, but yeah, no, I liked I when I I used to compare I used to early on before I got really into him. I used to compare Michael Bay and Zack Snyder a little bit, but now I like Zack Snyder a lot more. Uh,
Yeah.
for a number of reasons. Mainly because, well, actually, a lot of reasons. I won't go into any of them. Let's get back to
Yeah.
animation.
Um,
I feel like there was something I want.
we could talk about. I was thinking about two things. Well, unless you got something, you got something.
I feel like I had something and I've forgotten it. I've recently been started rewatching some cartoons lately. Oh wait, I remember what I was going to say. The other cartoons I grew up with, well, during that period of my life where I got into cartoons were Men in Black the series and
Yes.
Static Shock. Were the other oh, and Batman Begins. Those were like the big four for me. Batman Begins, Static Shock, and
Oh, Batman Beyond.
yes, yeah, Batman Beyond. Yeah, Batman Beyond. And Men in Black. I liked those were the those because those were like that was what was on the CW afternoon cartoons for a while.
Yeah, like I like Static Shock. It's fine. I never had a huge affinity for it, and Batman Beyond was also like really great. It's good. Men in Black, though, as a kid, I like that show better than the movies. For
I
some reason, the it expanded the concept
mhm.
into this very pulpy world that the movies could never quite replicate to me. Like every sequel I watched of Men in Black, even the original, sometimes when I'm watching it, like doesn't hit as hard as the show does for me. Maybe it's my nostalgia speaking, but like I sometimes have trouble going back to the original and the second one. I don't feel like they're as always as strong as people say they are.
I mean, I do think of the first movie as a classic. I kind of felt like the second movie tried too much to be like the first movie and never found its own footing.
It
Uh,
has like two really funny bits, and then that's about it. Like
I
the
actually thought
the David Cross bit.
I actually thought the third movie was better than people gave it credit for.
I haven't seen
Um,
it.
honestly, I thought it was all right. Um, it felt like the humor was actually updated, if that makes any sense.
Mm.
Um,
But the show is
yeah, no, the show was
uh,
great.
again, it's like that pulp. Um, I think Big Guy and Rusty, which is another good show from that period of time.
I've never seen it, but I know
I
it's based on a comic book.
Yeah, it's a really fun like indie comic that got turned into a show, and then there was or indie comic like thing. Um, then there was Godzilla the animated series. I know
Oh, I
the
remember that.
animation studio did that. I think they also did the Mummy as well.
The
I
Mummy's
think they
Alive show? Oh wait, no,
Mhm.
there was a show based off the Brendan Fraser movies, wasn't there?
Yeah.
I almost
Yeah.
forgot.
Mummy's
Oh
Alive is
man, I
also very
forgot
great,
about
but
that
that's
one.
Mummy's Alive. We're going back to TMNT. But
I mean, yeah, no, that one was also a show that used the TMNT formula to a certain extent. Maybe a little
yeah,
bit closer to. I never actually watched Mummies Alive. I was
it
more
was
aware.
closer to Gargoyles,
Yeah, yeah, it
but
also.
its setup is very much within there.
Yeah, it falls within that range. I always think of like From what I know of Gargoyles, I sort of think of it as like the more like evolved version of that formula, if that makes any sense. Um,
Yeah,
which I say without watching it. But
watch it.
uh, yeah, no, I love the Men in Black show. I was a big Static Shock fan.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
um, although I, although generations of kids were tricked into thinking, Static's name was Static Shock. Uh, but that's that's a big thing I see on the internet a lot is that when people are talking about Static Shock, there'll always be like someone who's actually read the comic books there to be like, his name is Static, not Static Shock.
It's
Uh,
like, oh, the show is so good.
and it was
And
also
other
tied into the DC universe.
of
Uh, had
yeah,
crossovers with Justice League Unlimited and Batman Beyond.
yeah. And then even got brought back into Justice League. Yeah, yeah. Way back later, older Virgil shows up in Justice League Unlimited. Yeah.
Nice. Um,
It's
it lasted for
I,
4 seasons, but a major thing that really like fucks up cartoons is toys. Like so many shows that have been considered great have been canceled over toys.
Young
Yeah,
Justice.
no, Young Justice is a big example because Young Justice like caught on more with like an older audience, with the older kids who
Mhm.
don't necessarily buy toys. And then
And also, Young Justice got kind of murdered by Steven Universe too.
I want to talk about Steven Universe in a minute here, but yeah, like I love Justice League Unlimited, by the way. Um, but like that show was canceled over toys. The Green
Also,
Lantern, the Green Lantern show was
yeah,
canceled over toys. Static Shock.
Batman Brave and the Bold.
I don't know what the story was with that one, but it was probably toys. Uh,
Toys, and also I don't think it could ever find its audience. I love Batman Brave and the Bold. That show fucking
oh, I know.
slaps.
Batman Brave and the Bold was on for a while. It was Beware the Batman that only lasted one season.
Yeah,
Uh,
Beware the Batman. I wasn't a big fan of that. Joker design was weird.
I
I
think
thought it was a.
wait, I think you're thinking of the Batman. Do you mean like the one where he had like the dreadlocks and the bare feet?
Yep, that's the Batman.
That is the Batman. Batman Beware is
Beware the
really,
Batman was a CG one.
yeah, yeah, and they like didn't have Joker in it. They were like, we're going to focus on less focused on characters.
But
Um,
that was Batman the Brave and the Bold. We had Clock Man. We had the Clock King.
yeah, Batman Brave and the Bold was fun just because it was like the team up show.
It's so campy.
It
My
is,
my,
it is.
fa- my favorite moment is there's a bad guy that was beating on Dr. Fate. It's like, haha, without your helmet, you're useless. Dr. Fate smiles, cocks his fist back, and just decks him.
Nice. Um, oh, but Static Shock tragically was canceled, because of racism. Uh, the studios didn't believe that kids would want to buy toys, would want to buy black action figures, essentially.
Oh.
Yeah,
So this is weird because it made it 4 seasons and then
yeah. It managed to make it 4 seasons before the studio was like, I don't think we can make toys off this.
that is yeah, no, that's I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's my sad and that's my sad racist fact for the day. Awesome.
yeah. Unfortunately, the cartoons and animation and comic books are full of sad racist facts. Uh,
Oh, it's chock full, pretty much stuffed to the brim.
yep. Yep, but Static Shock being canceled over them not thinking that people want to buy black action figures, pretty fucked up.
That's sadder than letting Disney be a black character, let a character be black for an entire run time without turning them into something.
Mm-hmm.
That was a lot of words to get a joke out.
uh, but yeah, no. So those were the kind of the shows I watched, and then after that, I got. Wait, have you ever seen, uh, what is it? Invasion America. I want to make sure I got the title right. Yeah, it was Invasion America. Oh man. So Invasion America premiered actually in prime time. Um I'm trying okay, let's see here. It was produced by Steven Spielberg and Harve Bene. And it featured the voices of Mike Kelly, Lorenzo Lamas, Tony Jaa. Wait, that Tony? No, different Tony. Oh, sorry, Tony J. Edward Albert and
Uh,
Leonard Nimoy.
huh.
It was produced by DreamWorks, and it was like a mini series that was designed to potentially have a future mini series. It had it looks like it had a total of 13 episodes. But the first two episodes were a big deal and were released in prime time. But for some reason, audiences stopped watching it after the first two episodes.
That sounds so familiar.
I I I I I don't know. It's been forever since I saw it. But like when I was young, I thought it was awesome. The animation kind of looked like X-Men Evolution.
I have like a right now Right now, my Wi-Fi dropped, so like I'm not able to look up on my computer, but I'll definitely look it up when I get the chance.
They apparently there are two different versions of it. One that was edited for younger audiences that was aired on Kids WB, while the uncut version was aired in primetime lineup of the WB.
I swear I know what you're talking. It's like I remember sitting down and watching something that was definitely an animated show for like prime time, and it was about aliens and stuff. And I was like, yeah,
It was a while ago. I think it said what year did it say it was? It was in 1998.
yeah, okay. I'm fairly sure I'm thinking of the same thing as you. It's just I haven't.
Yeah,
Yeah, that is a deep cut one.
yeah, that one is a deep cut. But okay, let's go to Steven Universe, and and
Ooh,
Adventure Time too. Adventure
yeah.
Time.
Basically the new.
Mm, I would
Yeah,
I
I
would
remember the
say
show.
I will say that they are both awesome.
Yeah. I consider it the next wave, like ushering in the newer wave of animation. Um, because I've had conversations with people that are like, "Oh, they don't make cartoons like they used to." I was like, "I just don't think you're watching new cartoons," uh, uh, because I think like new cartoons are doing stuff that like is definitely paved by everything we've been talking about, like in the last like 2 or so hours. Newer shit is on next level in terms of representation, storytelling, like and Steven Universe and Adventure Time, and also I'd say Gravity Falls are the three that kind of started that trend.
Oh yeah, oh that's the show I remember. Gravity Falls. Apparently
Oh,
the
and that's before even talking. We didn't even talk about Avatar: The Last Airbender.
I've only seen a few episodes of Avatar: The Last Airbender, but
Oh my god,
I know what I've seen is really good. It's also very anime. Uh,
it is.
like it feels like an anime that was made not in Asia, which is weird. Um, but at the
It's so
same
good.
time, it like uses all the anime like tropes and stuff. Um, so I think there's some profound irony in the fact that I don't know how to say this guy's name, but the guy who created Earthworm Jim was one of the people who like mentored the Steven Universe people.
Huh.
And so that's like deeply ironic to me because I want to say Greg Tanapel. I don't know how to say his name. But the guy who created Earthworm Jim is kind of also a garbage person.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Like,
he is specifically transphobic,
mm,
which is why I think it's deeply ironic that a show that is so gender non-conforming as Steven Universe would have any connection to him. So
yeah. I
that's
mean,
fascinating.
it's the animation industry is like have all kinds of different hands touching things, and there's going to be skilled people, even skilled garbage. Um, I mean, let us not forget the artist of Dilbert exists.
Oh yeah, no. At some point, someone was generous enough to give him a cartoon that I think lasted like 2 seasons or something, or maybe it
Yeah,
lasted
the
longer. I don't know. I think it was on UPN, so it's hard to tell.
I think what I found interesting about that is you can find interviews where he said the reason why the show got canceled had to do with like scheduling stuff and just it not fitting there. And then years later, he went back and said it's because of racism and it was a black channel. Like you could see in real time him evolve into his racist form and the rhetoric take hold.
Oh my god. I always
It,
feel vindicated when artists who I always thought were overrated turn out to be garbage people.
yeah,
Like
like hey people that like Dilbert, um, consider this: Bill Watterson like no, just no notes. The guy who made Calvin and Hobbes. Follow him.
Bill
His
Watterson has
co-
Bill Watterson has a new comic book coming out,
Hmm.
and I think it's a horror comic.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, he's
I
making it in collaboration with another artist, and like it sounds like they almost like free formed it together. Like one would draw a page, and then they would draw another page. I don't know that for sure, but I am excited about it. We are talking about the Calvin and Hobbes guy, right?
yes, we
Okay, I
are.
wanted to make sure I wasn't fucking up the name because there's a few famous Wattersons who are creatives, and I don't swap them around.
Shoot, I want to make sure. I'm fairly sure I got
No,
the right guy.
I think you did. I think you did. Um, oh man, but Calvin Hobbes was such a great comic strip.
It
Such
still holds up.
Oh, of course it does. And what's amazing is Bill Watterson is a wild dude because he never wanted to do the thing that everyone in the 90s said you were supposed to do, which was to
Sell the rights.
like turn it into like a hot property. He's like, "Nope. I'm just going to make the comic and people are going to buy the books and I will make money
And it whole
buying the books."
and in that way he protected that show's soul,
Mm-hmm.
because that doesn't exist for Charlie Brown. Charlie Brown's soul, and like same thing for Garfield and a bunch of these comics, they they're soulless. I'd say even the Muppets, once you see them in freaking Lipton iced tea commercials, like their souls are being removed because they're used to sell shit. Snoopy's used to sell insurance.
True.
And it's like you how can you on one breath have the Christmas classic that's anti-consumer, the old Charlie Brown special, and then turn around and see them used to sell insurance and all this other stuff and like be slapped on things? It spits in the face of the idea and it burns it down over time. It loses its power.
Because Peanuts was always kind of about human foibles. Like it was a comic meant to reflect our the insecurities of human beings and like our sort of existential struggle to be loved and to love ourselves. It's an amazing comic strip,
Yeah.
and with a number of great cartoons.
Which bring, like, I do want to get back into Steven Universe, but which brings me back to like I had brought up Hey Arnold earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Hey Arnold, I feel like carries the torch of the Peanuts in its DNA with its music, because the music in Hey Arnold is incredible. It introduced a generation to jazz, specifically acid jazz, but it does like a bunch of other musical types in it. Uh, the characters are fantastic, and just showing this very like urban world that is it is one of those cartoons that shows kids in a city and it feels natural. It doesn't do that thing where, oh no, the city is dangerous. Because like in most media, and especially in children's cartoons, when there's an episode when they go to the big city, it's all fun and games until night hits. But in Hey Arnold, they had a few episodes like that, but there were just as many, if not more, when it was just these kids and characters living, thriving, and exploring a very culturally diverse area that felt real.
Nice.
And as far as like representation goes, I feel like that show was like for its time groundbreaking. It was one of the few. It was one of those Nickelodeon shows that showed like Jewish culture more like
Oh, that's right.
explicitly.
That's right. I forgot about. Like I said, I've only seen a few episodes of Hey Arnold.
It's a good show. It's definitely if you're guaranteed a good time if you pop on a few random episodes. Um, there are some like okay episodes, like, but it's a lot of bangers, and there's something to get out of everything. If you want like the short list of the must watches, like the Christmas specials and the Halloween specials are always good. There's the famous episode where Arnold tries to get one of the people in his boarding house is a Vietnamese man that lost contact with his daughter and on Christmas wants to find her. And
I
so
think I
Arnold
might have
does everything
seen
to,
that one actually.
yeah,
I might have seen
that
that.
one is like, that one's considered like a classic of just animation in general. I think it's like one of the greatest pieces of TV, just in
Nice.
general too.
I will have to give Hey Arnold another look.
Uh,
Another show, a show that I love that is also part of the Adventure Time period is Regular Show.
that dude got done dirty.
Yeah, no, I love Regular Show, and actually, I loved Close Enough on HBO Max. Except now it's one of the shows that they vaporwared.
It's
Ah!
gone. I remember getting in, like, I got into that show. I was like, oh man, I watched both the seasons. Like, I can't wait for more.
Mm-hmm.
It's all gone. Like,
Close enough. Close enough made me feel better about being my age, if that makes any weird sense at all.
Close Enough was like the natural, like, regular.
Okay, you
It always
froze up
felt
there.
like,
You froze up
oh,
there. What did you say about regular show?
regular show always felt like a show that didn't fit all the way in Cartoon Network. Like, age range demographic, like, it just barely skirted it.
Yeah. Well, I mean it was like a stoner show that was okay for kids to watch. That's what it
Yeah.
was.
And then Close Enough just took that concept and just took it to its logical conclusion. It didn't even walk too far away from the formula, honestly. It's
I'd
pretty
agree with
much
that.
just more regular show. Um,
Like, so regular show is kind of a show about being in your 20s, which is an interesting concept for a kids show. And, and then like Close Enough is kind of like a show about
being
being
in
in
your
your
30s.
30s. Yeah, no, that's exactly what those shows were like.
And it's so great. Like, one of my favorite bits on there was the cold open where they're like, "Oh yeah, like our daughter's going over here overnight. We can do adult stuff." And they play Turn Chef for what? It's to start doing taxes and go grocery shopping, but they're wilding out the whole time. It's like, it's just, there's a freedom to their freaking visual gags
Oh
that
yeah.
can it's just more regular show in what they're doing, but now it's like with more adult context.
I was so sad when that show was canceled. And then even more sad when HBO Max was like, we're not going to pay the rights anymore. It's like, you sons of bitches.
So yeah, again, for those that want to find a bay filled with pirates,
If you have any desire to see Close Enough, which is an amazing show.
Close Enough, or Megas XLR, or Infinity Train.
Infinity Train, also a great show. And actually, I would, so like the thing about Infinity Train is that like Infinity Train and Steven Universe, when you break
And
it
Adventure Time.
down, are all about trying to address like emotional intelligence
Yeah,
and like teach kids about those important like emotionally intelligent lessons, which is
exactly. That's why I'm like, their next level in comparison to, like,
mm-hmm.
well, I mean, they're doing something different. Like, this investment on emotional intelligence, like, in those shows, is, like, for me, like, freaking mind blowing. Like, in how overt it is. Because, like, Steven Universe is incredible in it. Adventure Time does it a whole lot too. Um,
Yeah.
Again, tracing it back to Hey Arnold, that show did a fair amount of, like, emotional, like, work with emotional intelligence, and that the entire idea of Arnold as a character is that he's going to help everybody and he's going to try his hardest, and you end up encountering these characters that are flawed.
Characters who are flawed was the last
He'll
thing I
help
heard.
he'll help characters that are flawed, like, this character Stoop Kid. He never leaves his stoop. Arnold helps him get off his stoop. He's a bit of an asshole, and you think, oh, now that he can leave his stoop, he'll be a good person. Nope. He now knows that since he can leave his stoop, he can fuck with people off his stoop and on his stoop. So he's just an asshole all over the place now. But the episode explores why he is the way he is, and that he did actually experience positive change, that he is a better person because of Arnold being empathetic towards him, that there is this idea that, yes, he's still going to do assholish things, but he is not objectively a bad person. He is not like that stock bully character that you see at the beginning. There's far more layers to him. And in that same way, I feel like the people that work on Adventure Time, Steven Universe, and Infinity Train took those ideas, and, like, that's where we are now.
I won't lie. Adventure Time feels very pagan to me, but
Mm.
which I think is valid. Um, I don't know if you can hear me while this is happening or not. Uh, oh, you're back.
Hello.
Okay.
Okay.
What was I going to say? But yeah, Adventure Time feels very pagan to me, which I think is interesting. And then And then Steven Universe, like the thing that's fascinating about it, and I don't like it also like it explores like gender constructs in like very in my opinion ways that are okay, like right now there's a big debate in our society about how do we like talk about gender with kids, and I think Steven Universe is a great way to talk to kids about gender. I think
Yeah.
the way it handles it is very empathetic and like never makes it scary, and it never invalidates any particular gender, and like characters who are, even though all the gems are coded as female, like they still have other gender traits that are not necessarily what we would describe as feminine.
Yeah.
And it's also great because it's a show where literally the guy who wants to save the hero who's looking to save the universe does most of his saving the universe by like
Talking to
talking to
people.
talking to the villains and like basically being like, hey, maybe don't be a dick.
Which is great because like one of the climaxes of the movie is like the villain basically saying like you can't just change me and solve my problems just by talking to me, and he gets punched in the mouth. I was like that they end up calling out its own formula, and even the final season of the show is like a breakdown of the effects of being that open like on one's psyche.
That's an interesting point. The Steven Universe like wrap up where they're teenagers series is also good and also deconstructs many of its own things that it was doing. Yeah, Steven
I
Universe.
feel like in I feel like it needed another season, but like
Yeah,
another season or two to really.
I would never say no to more Steven Universe.
However, if you are looking for more stuff like Steven Universe, um, and I'm gonna start to wrap it up because it is
I was
three
gonna say, yeah, no,
14.
we should wrap it up soon here. But what show are you gonna say?
I'm gonna have a. Oh, did I cut out?
Nope, you're still there.
Okay. Um, Here are my closing suggestions. Uh, I was gonna suggest Moon Girl Devil Dinosaur, but that doesn't really fit within the mold. I just like that show. I just want to say that one.
I haven't seen it yet. I'll have to look it up. What
Uh,
channel is that on? Or
it's on Disney
Plus?
Plus.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna start with that one, just as a base suggestion, just because representation wise,
Mhm.
it features mostly black and different ethnicities within it. Um, the music is like on point in there. The vocal cast is good. Lawrence Fishburne helped produce it. He plays a character on there. It's a really good time. It's a fun children's show. It doesn't do anything big and epic with its plot. It's just a fun watch. Um, but if you're looking for something like Steven Universe, and you haven't watched Infinity Train yet, uh, I'd suggest Owl House.
Okay.
That's on Disney Plus, and right now they're finishing the series with some TV movies because it got canceled. Like all good things, um, it got canceled, and Disney later admitted and said, we shouldn't have canceled this one. It's very popular with the fans. Like they realized too late what they had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, movie movie and television studios tend to do that, where they react too strongly to the early reactions and then try to course correct and ruin everything or cancel it.
It also has very explicitly gay characters. Like this isn't like, oh, they're coded. Oh, it's kind of in the background. No, they gay. Like it is explicitly said. And it isn't just like, oh, these characters that are gay, they're like side characters. They're like the one of the main characters' parents. No, main couple. Explicit.
Mm-hmm. There's a
Like, oh, you want to show this in another country? Like, well, you can't.
there's a lot of speculation now that Disney might swing back the other way now that they've fired that one woman.
Oh yeah, and they'll do more censorship and not have
Well,
as many diverse
it does sound like
relationships
she
and
was.
show.
It does sound like she was a big voice for diversity at Disney. From what I'm hearing. So
That sucks. Doomsday scenario.
yeah, so that's unfortunate. Which, by the way, Strange World was actually pretty good. I
I
was
need to watch that.
Yeah, no, I saw it and I was like, oh, this is actually like
Ooh,
a nice little family adventure.
ooh, and my second suggestion, if you have never watched, read.
Okay, you cut. Oh no! Right as he's saying the second
Still there?
suggestion. Okay, right as you were about to say the second suggestion, you cut out. What was the second suggestion?
The DuckTales reboot.
I've seen some of that, and that is good.
Like it's got David Tennant as Scrooge McDuck. There's a bunch of other comedians that play like a bunch of different characters. Lin-Manuel Miranda, who I think at that time was just contractually required to come out to Disney things because of Moana. Like he's in the show.
I was exposed to Lin-Manuel Miranda probably in a less than ideal way, which was that I saw the Mary Poppins Returns movie, and that was the first time I'd seen him in anything, which is not a great
Um,
first impression.
the running joke is that like he is a great he's a great lyricist. He's very good at writing music, but then he likes to write himself in stuff. Like I think he tried to write himself as Bruno in Encanto, and they were like, Like I even wrote myself a character. He even has like a fun little rap. No, no. Thanks for the music. Bye, Lin-Manuel.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Put the sheets on the table and leave. Like,
Yeah.
uh, because he has a very like distinctive style that almost becomes. It's just a level of range where it's like, yo, you see him once or twice, and it's like, oh, that's him.
Makes
It's
sense.
not bad. I don't think he's a bad actor. I don't think he's bad at his vocal talents. It's just he became grating really fast.
Like I said, first thing I saw him in was Mary Poppins Returns, which is a very disappointing movie in my opinion. Like I've
Mm.
never seen a movie like so desperately try to be the original movie. Like just like all the parallels to the original movie, it comes off as like just trying to be like it, and it's very like the movie's just full of weird things. Like instead of going into a chalk painting, they go into the drawing on a porcelain vase. Instead of Lin Manuel Miranda's character being a chimney sweep, he's a lamplighter. Instead of having a thing with chimney sweeps on roofs, they have a thing at the end with lamplighters in the sewers. And then it like the very end, instead of a song about kites, it's a song about balloons. It's like,
Ugh.
yeah, no, it like
It's like a Mad Libs version of.
Emily Blunt's great, but yeah, no, Mad Lib's not a bad way to put it.
It's like, oh, let's take these same situations and just tweak it. Like that actually wraps very well into what I was thinking with Ducktales, because Ducktales is an example of taking the remake reboot is an example of taking an established property that the original DuckTales is kind of like it's just Saturday morning cartoon stuff. Like if you go back and watch the original,
Mhm.
it's fine, but it's not. It's groundbreaking in how it was made, the animation,
Yeah,
and what it led to. But the actual content is very stock children's animation. Uh, this show takes is what I feel is peak nostalgia tuning, where some shows are very manipulative in like when it's a established property and they're playing with nostalgia. The DuckTales show does this wonderful thing where one, you can enjoy it even if you have never seen the original. And two, if you have enjoyed the original, how they use, subvert, and play with established nostalgia vibes is heartwarming. There were moments in that show that made me cry. There's a moment where they use the moon theme from the DuckTales NES game as a lullaby for the boys because the show decides to answer a question that no one really had, which is, where's their mother? And it actually has really good payoff.
wow, that's impressive.
Uh, it's like I was sat there, like I remember when they pitched it, and they like people were talking about the idea in the show, and I was like, I don't care about that. But the show wrote the characters so well and had so much fun with the adventures and the writing and whatnot that uh when they did the lullaby, I was like, is that the moon theme? Did they make lyrics to it? And then you start listening to it, and it's like, even it's a good song, even if you didn't know where it came from, even if you had no idea what it was from, because of the emotional cues, because of the way that they were setting it up, uh, it lands. Uh, as why it's like, yo, if you anybody out there, if you've never seen that show, I will shout praises for that show from the rooftops. It is so damn good. Also, like most good things, was also canceled, but it did get a satisfying conclusion. I feel. I felt like there could have been more seasons out of it, because by the end of the show, they did this crossover Disney Afternoon thing where they were pulling from like Tailspin and Chippendale Rescue Rangers and Darkwing Duck.
Wow.
And there was a lot of room where, like, yo, you could just do straight spin-offs from this. And then Disney was like, we don't like money. And just threw it away. It was very disheartening.
Yep.
It probably didn't do the numbers they wanted.
Probably not. All right. Well, I guess it's about that time. First of all, Joe, I want to thank you for joining me on my podcast here to talk about cartoons. I think we could easily get another 2.5 hours out of cartoons in the future. We didn't even get to a lot of the adult cartoons.
No, we didn't even get to adult cartoons or anime.
Yeah, no, I feel like anime probably have to be its own episode too. Okay, so we're gonna have to come back for adult cartoons and then anime. Okay. I mean, Ralph Bakshi, we kind of touched on adult cartoons, but even there's
a lot more to talk about.
Yeah,
definitely.
Even there's more to say.
All right, that's without even going into the oblongs, to PJs. Oh my God. Okay, sorry.
All right, no, you're right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening. Definitely watch all the cartoons we've talked about today. So yeah, I guess now's the time to. Oh, as soon as Joe comes back here, we'll ask him to say howdy do or aloha or whatever type of exit he would like to make. All right,
what's up?
I was just gonna say, it's time to say goodbye to the people. So,
thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun. I love talking cartoons. It's one of my favorite subjects, alongside talking about video games, then improv and comedy, and then probably politics. Those are like my Jimmy Jams.
Those are most of my favorite things to talk about on this podcast. So that's perfect. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please like and follow or subscribe wherever you're listening. And also, please check out the YouTube channel. Once again, that's Ruben Uncut, and both YouTube and also the Gmail is rubenuncut@gmail.com if you feel like I'm wrong about any of these cartoons.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening, and have a wonderful day. Adios, people. For anyone who's listening, I was going to say, for anyone who's listening, Joe is waving.
Oh, yeah. Bye.
Goodbye. Hey, kids, you love Spy Chairs, the Saturday morning cartoon, so get ready for Spy Chairs, the toys. The only toy you can sit on without breaking it.